Happy Monday, everybody. This is Dr. D here. It is May 13th already. I don't know, doesn't it feel like this month is just flying by? I don't know why it feels like May is just moving. um, I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining in or watching the replay. I appreciate you taking the time to just hear my thoughts because I want to know what are your thoughts. Um, and so every Monday I log on because I believe, like, my passion is empowering you, the urban school leader, to lead with confidence so that you can transform your instructional culture. That's what this is about, right? This is about honing in on the most marginalized students. And me, as a product of public education and a marginalized student, I advocate for public education because I believe that we have the power to change the systems that are continually oppressing our most marginalized kids, right? Like me. I believe, as Margaret Wheatley said, that we have to be brave enough to have the conversation that matters. And I'm going to add to be courageous enough to actually create the disruption, right, that's needed to change the current conditions our public schools are facing right now, especially our urban public schools. And so the purpose of this weekly session is to connect current issues and their impact on school leadership, right? How do these things impact you as a school leader? And it's also to develop a lens for data and how to use data and how to pull up data pieces so that you can use it as a necessary practice to be the change agent that is needed, right? So moving from being reactive to things to being more proactive, right? And so today, on what are your thoughts? We're talking about knock knock. Who's there? Where are our teachers? I shared a video not too long ago about this. There was one school that I know of that had up to 12 absences in one day, and this is recently, right? And I feel like there is uh, a trend or a thought or it really is a culture that's created where we have teachers that are calling out sick towards the end of the school year because they feel like assessments are over, like state assessments are over, so they can kind of call out and use their sick days. And those 6 days are theirs. This is true. However, there's a lot to be said about that action of like all of these teachers taking off on the same day and the impact that that has. And so I want to talk a little bit about the impact of teacher absenteeism on student achievement, keeping in mind that I am a huge proponent of, like, school is not over until the last bell rings. And last week, the live session last week was about the last bell ringing and holding how you as a school leader can hold your staff accountable in maintaining the high expectations through the end of the school year, right? Like to the last day of school. And that requires some planning and preparation, which you need to start looking at and doing right now, right? Like, we know that towards the end of the school year, textbooks are collected. A lot of things that are used throughout the year are no longer available because people are trying to pack up and store things for the summer. But planning ahead for the year with a scope and sequence where teachers are able to still implement effective, high quality lessons needs to happen at the beginning of the year, not now, right? And so there's a lot of planning that needs to take place. So today is a second part onto last week's live, which was school, it ain't over until the last bell rings. Okay, no one understand and believe that because your staff are going to follow your lead as a leader. You set the tone and expectation. And so today is about the impact of teacher absenteeism. So how does that impact kids and the culture of your building when staff are out, consistently out? And so have you ever considered like the sustained effects of teacher absences on your students? Of course you have, right? You deal with it every single day. I remember as the principal figuring out with my APs how we were going to move students around and consolidate classes and combine classes or break down classes, and it is a very um, specific skill to know and like react in a way where it is um, keeps the flow of your school building uh, in motion without a whole lot of disruption, right? Um, and so one of the things that we used to do as a school is we kept a supply of substitute teachers on hand. You know, we had a substitute teacher, at least two, that came in every single day, even if we had 100% attendance. We still had them in the building every single day. We figured it out, right? There are ways to be creative with doing that. And so I want to get into this article and kind of lift up some of these points that they mentioned in the article. So today we're going to delve into the impacts of teacher absenteeism, and talk about some proactive steps that you as a school leader can take to effectively manage and reduce your teacher absences, right? So let's get into it. Imagine if every time a student looked up, they saw a different teacher. Like, how do you think that that would impact their journey, their learning journey, and their sense of security, right? Like, and especially at this time in the year, students have developed relationships with their teachers. There's a sense of security that is in place um, because of those relationships, right? And so I want to share an article with you, and as always, I will share the link in the comments so that you can refer to it as well. It's a really comprehensive article in terms of there are links to research about this topic. And before we get into that article, in terms of the data, you as a school leader have been collecting data from the beginning of school. You have been collecting data around teacher absences. In that data, you should be able to identify some patterns that you see when it comes to teacher absences. Is it happening right before something major is supposed to happen at school? Is it happening right before grades are due? Is it happening after an event? This is all data for you as a school leader to take a look at, you and your leadership team, to see what are the patterns that you are noticing with your teachers being out, right? I truly believe that those days are there for a reason, and I believe in using them. I've never been the kind of school leader to say, "Oh no, don't ever be absent." That I've never been that person. If you don't feel well, if you're not 100%, if you feel like you just can't today, that's what those days are for, right? But also as a school leader, when in messaging that, I also had systems in place so that when teachers were out, there were plans that could fill that gap, right? So that no instruction was lost. It wasn't just busy work, it was a continuation of the lesson outlined where the teacher was responsible for creating a lesson for a sub to come in and still be able to teach certain parts of the lesson, right? Where it's more of a flipped classroom setting where they're working on things that they worked on before, but building on that. So the sub is actually acting as a guide and a facilitator to the discussion. But the teacher has clearly outlined every component of the lesson, what the teacher should say, what students should be doing, all of that is outlined. It's not just a substitute plan. Like I remember early on in my education career, substitute plans were just copies that you made and you dropped in a folder. Like, what's the point of that? Right? Just because a teacher is out doesn't mean instruction should stop. So you as a leader need to make sure that you have those systems in place. And when you are that specific around the expectations for taking off, it messages to your staff that you are holding them to a higher level of expectations in regard to what kids need and deserve, right? And your staff will meet you at that level of expectation when they feel like they're supported. So let's get into um, this article. Uh, the article is called The Impact of Teacher Absenteeism on Student Data. And it details how absences disrupt student learning and the classroom dynamics, right? So it's really significant because the broader implications of this on frequent absences mean like a strain on school resources. Right now, we have to spend money for subs to be in the building, right? um, Additional burden on your colleagues because now I have to split this fourth grade classroom into the other fourth grade classrooms and maybe even the fifth grade classrooms, right? And mind you, those splitting of classrooms are strategic too, right? So you know if you have a group of fourth graders who can use the push, those are the fourth graders that you could put in a fifth grade classroom, right? Um, so this is like you really need to be strategic with it, and it really does need to be planned effectively. So let me add the article to. Let me share the article now. And so this article was written June 2nd, 2023, not quite a year. Um, and it talks about how one that after the pandemic that there has been um, an increase that has gotten worse since the pandemic, right? That teacher absenteeism is not a new phenomenon. We all know this, but more than 1 in 5 U.S. schools have reported it has gotten worse since the pandemic. And that could be for a number of reasons, right? I'm not going to try to say what they are because it could be for a number of reasons. People are afraid to come to work. People are not feeling well. Maybe someone has long COVID. Who knows? There's a bunch of reasons, things that could be causing this, right? According to a survey taken in May of 2022 by the Department of Education, teacher absences have increased compared to prior years. More than three-quarters of schools reported it is more difficult to get substitutes than it was before the pandemic. It's hard to get substitutes. And you're working in a school district, you know this. I actually did a poll on LinkedIn to ask, like, what are some of the things that you find, asking school leaders, or what are some of the things that you are finding challenging right now in your school or in your school district? And a couple of folks said, um, like teacher absenteeism and a lack of substitutes was one. Um, and so it's real. It's not isolated to any one district, but this is a nationwide um, concern. And so, for the purpose of the conversation, making sure that we are on the same page, this article defines teacher absenteeism. So it goes into how different districts have um, different days of general leave. Like Hartford, Connecticut has 25 days of general leave, which is very, very generous um, to all its teachers, right? While Dallas, Texas offers 10, right? Um, and some districts give you all 10 up front, and other districts will give you 1 day each month. I think it's like past the 15th or something like that. It adds on another day. So it really all depends on where you are. But for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to use the definition from this article. Um, so chronic absenteeism defined by the roll call report as missing 18 or more days in a school year, right? 18 or more days in a school year can be more damaging to a school's culture and student learning. So what causes it? There are a lot of, based on the research, there are several things that can cause it. And please add into the comments some of the things or reasons that you think teacher absenteeism is high, right? So the question was or is, why are teacher absences higher than average for the average worker? Because that's what these paragraphs talk about. Is like in comparison to other workers, teacher absences are higher. And so some of the reasons include, we're not surprised about this, right? Burnout and stress. Okay, teachers are often overworked and underpaid, and the stress of the job can lead to burnout. This is true. But again, I will say this: I don't know any one teacher who got into teaching because they knew they were going to be rich. And this again means a shift in leadership and how you as a school leader are reigniting that passion in your staff, right? Of course, I'm not talking about, the cost of living. Those adjustments must be made. And naturally, we do need teachers to be paid more. But I also will push on this to say we need teachers that are paid more, but we also need to see the results improve because we have nationwide Black and brown kids who are still not reading on level and still not. To me, it's not even about passing state exams, state reading and like ELA and math tests. That's not what it's about. We have kids that can't read, period. And so if you have students in your classroom that can't read and you're not doing something aggressively doing something about it, then why should you get a raise? I'm just going to say it because that's it. You get paid for the work that you do. I agree teachers do need to be paid more, but I also think and I feel like it should be based on the work, like the output. Can your babies read? And that's another whole conversation that we can get into because I feel like the dynamics need to change, as opposed to these standardized tests, that we find other ways to measure our students' um, their academic growth. But reading is a fundamental right. And so every child should be able to read. If you have children in your class and you teach seventh grade and they're reading second grade, why are you getting a raise? I know it has a lot to do with the teachers before you, or because it's not just you, but growth. What's the level of growth that that student has made since sitting in your classroom? We're not expecting a seventh grader walking in second grade reading level to read at seventh grade at the end of seventh grade. It's not realistic. We're talking about setting smart goals. But the growth, that student should grow at least a year and a half. Because if they grow a year, they're still going to be behind. At minimum, a year and a half. Right? I go off on a tangent. Another one is illness, right? As in any other profession, people get sick. The workload is another one that they list here as a potential reason why teachers often have a heavy workload with long hours and high demands on their time that can make it difficult to balance work and personal responsibilities. Again, school leaders, you have control over the culture and climate of your building. What culture are you setting for your staff if you are constantly have them responding to emails? For example, after a certain time during the week, they shouldn't be responding to emails. You shouldn't be sending out any information after a certain time, and definitely not on the weekends. Because that message that you're sending, because your actions will speak much louder than your words. And the message that you're sending is that you have to work beyond the parameters of work. And you don't have to. Let's make that clear. Like, you don't have to. You can still get the work done within the time allotted to get the work done. It is absolutely possible. We, meaning school leaders, need to create that balance and the expectations for work as realistic as possible, make it as realistic as possible, and create an environment where we're not forcing or making staff, even though you don't say it, the fact that you're sending an email at nighttime or on the weekend is, well, this principal is sending this. I guess she's expecting that I respond to it. Like, you don't even want to have your staff thinking that. So that workload is really about you as a school leader. It's also about the teacher's time management skills. And so that's a piece of data that you as a school leader collect as well. A lack of support. Teachers feel unsupported by their school or district. This is all you leaders. Okay, how are you supporting them? The support should feel like you care and not like, I got you, right? Because we know we have some lemons in our buildings, right? And unfortunately, in some districts, we called it the dance of the lemons. They would just be passed around from school to school because some school leaders just didn't want to take the extra step to support the teacher and coach them out because they were more damage to kids than anything else. And so before passing them on to a colleague, you have to do the work to coach the person out. Okay. And then mental health issues. Um, Mental health issues such as anxiety, depression can lead to increased absenteeism among teachers, right? And so you need to, this is critical for you to know, they don't have to disclose this information to you, but the relationships that you develop with your staff will allow you to have access to this information because they'll feel safe. They will tell you what is going on, right? And so just like we are asking them to differentiate support for their students, you as a leader need to differentiate your support for your staff and know which people you can say things to in certain ways. Make sure you're not pushing anybody over the edge, right? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so how does, I don't know if you can actually, yes, you can. Okay. How does teacher absenteeism impact students? Now, to me, this is a no-brainer, right? Like, this is really a no-brainer. What I found interesting is that this paragraph here says, while many research studies have failed to prove that there's a statistically significant drop in reading scores that can be directly attributed to teacher absenteeism, other studies have shown that achievement in math has borne the brunt, right? Meaning they've seen a decrease in math scores, but not in reading. That there hasn't been a lot of studies on that. I haven't done my research to see like if there have been some since then, because this article is almost a year old. But then when you continue to read the article, it shares information about how schools serving high concentrations of students of color were particularly likely to see teachers miss more than 10% of days in the school year 21-22. And so even though there may not be a lot of documented research as of this article's date, it's just 1 and 1 equals 2 sense. It's just logical that if a teacher is out and consistently out, that there are gaps in instruction. And if there are gaps in instruction and now the student is uncomfortable with whomever is in there because of a lack of trust, you can't tell me that that student's going to keep moving right along if the teacher is consistently absent 18 days or more in the school year. Like, think about that for a second, right? Share your thoughts. What are you thinking right now? And we know that in urban schools, there has been research to show and data to show that in urban schools, the absentee rates for teachers are higher in urban schools that serve Black and brown students, marginalized students, low-income students, right? And so the article is saying what you can do as a school leader is reduce absences by supporting teachers. Now I want to get into what are some ways that you can support teachers, right? So some strategies to alleviate teacher absences. Develop a supportive teaching environment, which is something I talk about consistently, right? So build a supportive work environment that addresses common reasons behind teacher absences. So you can implement regular check-ins and foster open communication culture, right? Where teachers feel valued and supported. So something that I talk about a lot is with these regular check-ins is at the beginning of the school year when you have your initial conference with teachers and you're asking them the things that they want to work on for the year. When you are actually doing your informal feedback, giving them feedback, bring those things back up. Continue, don't leave the initial conversation on a piece of paper or on your computer and only come back to it at the end of the school year for their final evaluation. That is a living document. That is something that you should be using or you can be using throughout the school year, lifting up the goals that they had and how you are supporting them with that. Because it's holding them accountable and you accountable as a school leader, right? So use that initial conversation and the goals that they set for themselves to engage in how you can support them. They will feel like, wow, my principal really listens to me and wants to support me and see me grow in this way. I know it. I've done it. I've had my staff share that, like, that's what they were feeling when you do that. Um, and the culture of open communication is really your emotional intelligence. I've talked about emotional intelligence in previous lives, and I will continue to lift it up because it is a constant in your leadership. That emotional intelligence piece where you are opening a culture of communication where people feel supported, trusted, and safe, right? So that's one thing that can help alleviate the teacher absences. So share your thoughts. What are some things that you're doing? Another thing is like enhancing your professional learning and the resources that you're providing, right? So if you're equipping teachers with the tools and skills they need to feel competent and satisfied in their roles, they'll want to keep coming back. So you have to celebrate. You have to celebrate the growth that they make. And I share this a lot in my framework with using the data cycle and how to have these celebrations, where and why it is so important to have them, to make sure that staff feel like what they're doing is having an impact. Because nobody wants to do something and feel like they're not like having an impact. The point is having an impact. That's why teachers become teachers, right? Um, One of the ways that you can figure out what it is staff want to learn is when you're taking a survey. Take a survey at the beginning of the year or during your initial conferences, right? And make sure that you are addressing their needs in the professional learning. Support them in the ways that they are asking for. Now, sometimes people just don't know the support that they need, but a lot of times they do. So you have to keep that door open to say, like, what exactly is the support that you need to feel like you are an effective teacher? Because all in all, people just want to be happy in what they do. They just want to feel like they're making a difference. They want to be happy. And your job as the leader is to provide the resources and the professional learning support that they need so that they can feel happy. Because happy teachers will come to work. Okay. A last one I want to share with you is implement strategic absence management. Like, what system do you have? Like, what system do you currently have that manages the absences without compromising teacher quality in your building? What system have you created other than just noting when the phone call comes through, the message from the automated system that says a teacher is out? What system do you have? Right? Have you vetted people in your community who can volunteer and come in and help? Because if there's a shortage on substitutes, naturally that's your first route, right? You find some qualified substitutes and create a pool and keep them in your building. We had 2 substitutes that came in our building every single day, even with 100% attendance. And we just had to maneuver people around. Like, I moved the teacher from here to come here, and I moved that teacher from here to go to a IEP meeting. So I needed a substitute teacher. That teacher went to a meeting with the district, which a lot of them do. So I needed a substitute for that. We were able to do that. You have to know how to use your resources in really creative and innovative ways. If you need some help with that, DM me and we can have some conversations around how to use your school budget in really creative and innovative ways so that you can have more resources for you and your babies, right? Um, you can also, there are people in the community who volunteer and come in. Now, naturally, not everybody, but the people that are vetted and have really strong relationships with the school community, with students. One school I was in, um, there was a full-on teacher who was a paraeducator. the principal in that school made the paraeducator the teacher and had a long-term vacancy, teacher vacancy in that classroom. Deliberate, didn't interview anybody, didn't want to, a long-term teacher vacancy, and that paraeducator served as the sub and got paid time and a half for it, right? She was a great teacher. Eventually she became a teacher, but for a couple of years, she was in that classroom as the teacher. So there are really creative ways to kind of fill gaps where needed. You have to take inventory of who you have in your building because the answers are in your building. So share your thoughts. What are some things that you're thinking of right now based on what I said? Share some strategies that you have for, retaining your teachers and helping with teacher absences. Um, and the other piece too is, I forgot to mention in this article, they talk about having wellness coaching. So overall, it says overall here, when teachers are supported through efforts such as PL, mentorship, wellness coaching, chronic absences may become less likely, and student motivation, engagement, and achievement will ultimately benefit. That's what we want, right? We wanted to. That's the goal. That is why we are why we do what we do with our babies. So as leaders, your task is to ensure that every classroom has a teacher, right? Who's not only present in the classroom like a warm body, but that teacher has to be supported and prepared to teach. So your role is to find creative ways to, one, support them and be proactive in the gaps that you will have in your school year. I remember there were some mornings where we were like, wait a minute. And then as the culture as your building changes, you will have less absences. You will retain more adults, right? So um if you're interested, the end of the school year is not just the time to wrap up. Like this is the time for you to reconnect your teachers and re-inspire them and innovate them, and inspire them and reignite their passion for why they do what they do, right? Celebrating them, making sure that they're coming back, holding them to high expectations. Um, and so next Wednesday, the 22nd, I am having a free masterclass, transformational decision making for urban school leaders. Love to have you in the room, in the Zoom room. I have posted it, and we'll put the link in this uh, live as well. So come on in there, register for the free masterclass, and so I can provide some more wonderful tips for you. Um, and or you can just DM me the word ready and I can send you the link directly. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching the replay. Um, and that's all for today. So implement the strategies, see what kind of difference it makes, and I will catch you on the next episode next Monday. So keep leading with your heart, leaders. Keep leading. Have a great afternoon.